What's good, people? Let's talk about how I've been on a win streak for September and made $497 today trading the Nasdaq, up overall around 32K on the month, or rather 2 weeks. And let's talk about how I was able to achieve that. So first things first, we've been only trending higher and higher ever since the market opened up during our overnight sessions, and hovering around all-time highs, with London highs being formed at those all-time highs. So we came down into this 4-hour unfilled with 8:30 news, which we had Canadian CPI data come out, as well as, what did we have? We had some type of like manufacturing index or some shit. No, core retail sales. That's what we had, red folder, and formed these data lows. So my initial suspicion, or rather prediction, was for us to come take these data lows, draw into this 4-hour unfilled, like redraw into it and get longs out of them, especially since it lines up with midnight open level. And on actually NQ, what actually happened here is quite interesting. We bottom ticked the midnight open level, and that lines up with data lows alongside an SMT. It was a little bit weird from MNQ to NQ, but that being said, I wanted longs, but we didn't get that. Okay. We eventually just crashed after the market opened and was chopping it up during the macro. So I took 2 trades. Both of them broke even and partial. So let's talk about them a little bit. And the second one was only taken on evals because I noticed the market conditions were just not good. First things first, we had Asia lows taken on both NQ and ES alongside an external SMT being formed. I didn't have it drawn out right here, but if you guys were trading this morning, I'm sure you would have seen it. I noticed that we did chop up quite a bit after taking Asia lows on NQ here. But what I also noticed is that price action was becoming relatively clean on ES if you take a look at this specifically, right? On NQ, it's the complete fucking opposite. But on ES, it wasn't that bad when it was holding, okay? So what ended up happening here was that we formed this internal SMT and took a 30-second IFG that I just wanted to ride until these highs right here, which specifically line up with the 15 minutes, the 20% of the 15-minute unfilled, as unfilled fair value gaps are great draws in liquidity. So it's about like here, 573, right? This is about like 25% of this unfilled. If I were to draw out like a GAN box, right? Whatever. Okay. And what ended up happening here, I'll turn on my executions here for a second. So I know it looks a little messy, but I can explain. So, I TP'd and partialed. Sorry, I TP'd one and broke even on this trade as we reached these internal highs, and I expected us to break out to these highs, right? But we didn't end up doing that, and I eventually got broke even. However, as you can see, there was another execution for another order, right? This buy and sell. So the reason that I was doing that in the first place was because when we came down with these 2 candle wicks right here, I was originally going to set my stop loss under this candle wick low instead of at break even. It was due to a discretionary play. So I did end up taking a very small SL position for a limit order, and I ended up getting stopped out by 1.5. So it's whatever. I don't really count it as a trade. I lost like 20 bucks on that shit. I don't care. That's not real trading. That's just me like fixing my mistakes, which is based off a discretionary play. And let's talk about the second trade here. So after this first trade, and I realized that we were still chopping it up, that today was definitely not a day to be trading at all. In fact, this trade was even the highest of quality. I de-risked heavily on this trade, banking only about like $100. I risked barely anything. And the only reason I did it in the first place was because I had nothing to lose for the month. I've already been pretty profitable. So another winning day would not be like, a bad thing for me, because I do got to get those winning days, right? That being said, we move on to our next trade here, which is the trade that I took just on evals. Okay. So we formed this internal SMT and inverse on ES. Okay. So we grab this 1-minute inverse, close super bullish, form this internal SMT. And we're currently chopping it up within a 2-minute fair value gap here. And I especially expected us to keep pushing higher right after this specific candle closure. right? And to add on that, this heavy displacement candle, as you can see, this displacement candle reacts extremely bullish off of this 1 minute fair value gap, forming that SMT, which just confirmed my entry at that point. So I actually didn't end up taking my profits here since I was taking on evals. I was like, I'm gonna fucking break even. If I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. It's not worth it for me to TP. But so I ended up getting stopped at a break even, right? And then that's the last trade I took for the entire session, right? Didn't take any trades beforehand or afterhand. I was low-key looking at a pre-market trade. It was like a long over here. We had like an SMT and a nice little IFEG. It was all right, but I never really trade pre-market too much, like barely. But that's the kind of play we had for today. It was extremely sideways price action after that initial dump off of open. And I mean, you got to adapt to the current market conditions. If market isn't clean, don't trade, right? That's why I made those mature choices to be able to tell myself, hey, this is good and this isn't. Especially with tomorrow being the FOMC meeting that will determine whether or not Fed rates are being cut. It's something that us as day traders need to be on the lookout for and be aware about. A lot of people are super like mechanical with it and think, oh yeah, if I just see IFEG liquidity sweep, blah blah blah, I'm just gonna execute and target internal highs. Like, no, dude, that's not how it works. So I kind of tried it here. I was like, yeah, that's not working. I'm breaking even. I'm not taking risk. And then I'm taking this on an eval. Like, I'm not fucking doing shit. And I didn't try to FOMO into any type of position for shorts, even though I was drawing shit out for it. Why? Because it didn't pair up with my model. This is called discipline in trading. This is called how I was able to make $32,000 this month. Maybe now it's like 32.5. But that's what discipline is in trading, dude. It's not something that is just, oh, I can do this just because my mentor told me to do this and it's liquidity sweep fair value gap. Like, no, there's something called price action, whether it's good and or bad, right? That being said, I am definitely looking forward to what we are going to be having this upcoming week with all the news. There's definitely going to be a lot of volatility coming into these markets, and I'm going to be live for it every single day. If you're interested in that, there's a link in my bio to watch me live trade. And all I can really say is that we change lives out here. Take care. See you tomorrow.